Okay, picking up where we left off, we're talking about the set user ID and set group ID. Now, isn't it fairly obvious that that could be some very, very dangerous thing to do? To have a file with the set user ID. Okay, let me give you even a crazier scenario. Let's say, for example, that I have a floppy disk. Okay, this is kind of a stupid example because no one has floppy disk, but bear with me. I have a floppy disk that I formatted using Linux, and in there I put a shell script that has the user ID of 0 and a set user ID bit turned on. Okay, now I go to some administrator and say, "Hey, Mr. Administrator, will you please mount my floppy disk? I need to copy some files." And they go, "Oh, okay." And so you pop the floppy disk in, and they run the magic mount command. Now I have a mounted file system that has a shell script with a set user ID bit turned on. Ooh. That means, thank you, Mr. Administrator, I won't need you ever again because now I can do anything I want. Okay, so to prevent that from happening, what happens is there's a way you can turn off the set user ID bit when you do a mount. When you're mounting, particularly when you're mounting a foreign, in other words, it's not one of yours, it's somebody else's or somebody temporary. If you're mounting one of your own disks, well, okay, no big difference. But if somebody brings you a disk, a CD-ROM, a floppy, a thumb drive, or a honest-to-God hard drive, and they want to mount it into your system, you would probably set this little magic command in the mount command. Using mount, tell it, I do not want to honor the set user ID because I don't trust you. Okay, that's kind of cool. So it is potentially dangerous, but on the other hand, it's pretty doggone convenient, like the shutdown command. That's pretty doggone cool. Okay, so on page 69, they go and talk about management of the root account. So in theory, root is just an account like any other account. In theory, I mean, you could have a password, you could log into it, you could do all those things, except that's frowned upon. We don't want you to be logging in as root and doing stuff. So Ubuntu, in their infinite wisdom, they have disabled the root account. Now that is not true in every single distribution. Some distributions will allow you to either log in as root or SU, switch user, into the root account. Now there's a tremendous amount of disadvantages of that, as you can probably imagine. One is that means all the people who need to be able to do that need to have the password for root. Ooh, that's pretty bad. So Ubuntu realized this was a bad idea, and they have disabled the account. Hey, let's see if we can figure out one of the ways you can disable an account. So I'm going to go here and do I'm going to do the cat etc. password for the umpteenth gazillionth time. Now the very last field in this, remember we talked about this as a a colon separated, like an Excel spreadsheet, except it's colon separated. See how some of these accounts have as their shell. The last thing is the shell. The last thing is a user bin no login, which is not really a shell. It's just something that pops up and says, "I'm sorry, you're not allowed to log into that." If you look at there's also some older ones called false, like towards the bottom. And then if it says bin bash, well then those are ones that actually you could do. Now, to tell you the truth, I was kind of confused. I was expecting root to not have the bash in there. Okay, I was expecting it to show that it was one of those ones you can't log into. So I'm a little confused on why they did that. Okay, so one of the problems with using SU is that when we do sudo, there's a log that's kept of all of the things that you did as you were an administrator, which is pretty doggone cool. Because if someone blew up the system, you could say, well, let me just go look at the sudo log and let's find out who did it. Yeah, it's got the date, time, and what the hell they typed. Okay, cool. Well, there's no logging if you just log in as the SU command. Log in as root or use the good old SU command. So let's talk about the SU command, even though we can't use it. So the SU command, I can switch over being Bob. Remember that? I can say switch over to Bob. And the password for Bob is Bob. And so now I am Bob. If I do ID, it says here I'm Bob, right? Cool. Clearly I'm Bob. I'm going to exit out of that, and then I'm back to being me again. Cool. So SU command still works, but only for going to other people. You can't use it to go to root. Okay, good. Sorry. Just wanted to make that clear. So, doing things, it is advantage. If you were going to be installing like 3 or 4 pieces of software, how annoying would it be to have to type sudo for the first one, and then sudo for the second one, and sudo for the third one? Actually, there's a timer involved. I don't remember exactly, I think it's 5 minutes. If you do a second sudo after 5 minutes, it won't prompt you for your password. It says, you've been here, and it's been less than 5 minutes, so I'm not going to pester you one more time. But the SU command would allow you to stay as root as long as you want, and then undo that. Cool. So there was a thing where you could do a dash when you logged in with SU. Notice that when I logged in as SU, did my home directory change? I mean, I use sudo Bob, and you can tell by the prompt where it says Bob at Ubuntu server, and then the current directory did not change. It was at home Emmett Gray. So what if I wanted to use the SU command and really, 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 really log in as Bob, as if I had logged out of my account, logged in as Bob, signed out, and then signed back in as me, okay? Well, there's a dash option. Sudo dash Bob gives me the full experience of logging in as Bob, okay? Kind of sort of makes sense. Now, sudo, by contrast, just does one thing, right? You don't log into the environment. You don't get the environmental variables and all the rest of the, you don't get the login script to run and all the rest of those things. And then it's very easy to configure those people who do and do not have sudo powers. So, for example, if we go to etc., if I spell it right, there is a sudoers file. Now, I'm probably not going to be able to do this because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need, well, it helps you spell it right. I'm probably going to sudoers. Okay, that's what I was expecting. So I'm going to have to do sudo unless sudoers. Okay, so this is a configuration file that's designed to show who can and cannot can use the sudo command. So if I'm sudoing into the root, here's everything you can do. If you're a member of an admins group, you can do everything. If you're a member of the sudo group, you can do everything. And then you can add some more things in. I could say, I want Bob to have some super user privileges, but not all. By the way, SU really, really stands for switch user, but just the vernacular, we call it the super user, so SU is both switch user and super user. I could go in here and say, okay, when Bob uses the sudo, the only thing they can do is like mess with the printer. They can set the print priorities, they can reset the print spool, that kind of thing, but they can't install software. So isn't that cool? Now, contrast that with using just a plain, if Ubuntu had allowed us to use sudo, the honest to God real SU command, well then once you become SU, there's no controlling what you can and can't do. But sudo, there is control. I can say, I want Bob to be able to do only this. Very, very cool. Okay. So right now, the admin and sudo groups are the two that get you into the ability to do sudo. Okay. One of the things that's kind of weird is, see this secure path? where they put in, user local sbin. Brrr. Okay, remember how we talked before about how we have the path variable? And one of the ways you could circumvent security is, let's say I created let's say I created a shell script called ls. Okay, so people type ls all the time, don't they, right? So I create a shell script called ls that installs some piece of software and then displays the contents of a folder. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? So if I was SU, I could trick someone to navigating to that folder with the cd command and then typing ls, and it would do my bidding for me. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? So to prevent that, when you're in the SU environment, it basically ignores your path and uses those paths right there. In other words, and it is not going to have things that you have write permission on. So a folder for where you could have created an ls is not going to appear on that list. So that's pretty doggone cool. Okay. Even though this kind of protection is kind of there, what security professionals really, really want you to do is they want you to always type the full path to something. Okay, so instead of typing, the way we have been doing, the sudo apt-get, right, like that, one of the things you might want to, they're trying to tell you to do is type out the full path. Ooh, what command, or I should have said which command, shows you the path to something? So which apt-get. So it's in user bin. What they really, really, really wanted you to do all along, even though we haven't, instead of doing sudo apt-get, they really wanted you to type user bin apt-get like that. Okay? So shame on me for not showing you the correct way from the very, 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 very beginning. All right, so why? Why do I want to always use the full path? Well, it's that story I just gave you. If you're using the full path, you can pretty much will guarantee that no one has created a second thing called apt-get and put it somewhere that you can stumble over. So if you always hard code the path, then no one can sneak something in. Okay? I may have not done a good job of describing that, but you can figure it out, I'm sure. Okay. The next section is the pros and cons, and I basically hit them all, but we're just going to go through the list. So the first one is, so on that bullet list on page 72, and it goes on to page 73. First of all the commands are being logged. Ooh, that is very sweet. If you pop into SU and you type something stupid, you're going to get caught, because we know who it is, we knew where, we knew what terminal you were on, and we know what the hell you typed. You can provide a very narrow application of power. So Bob only has the print-related commands that he can do. The root password is kept secret. No one needs to know what the root password is to be able to do SU. You need to know your own password, but heck, I expect you know that. It is somewhat faster than using SU, because SU would have to kind of change, it would have to go in and say, hang on a second now, let me park the the effective ID and the saved ID. We'll park that ID in the saved, and we'll switch you over to this. And in theory, SU could be faster because it has less to do. But quite frankly, you can imagine it's not that significant. I can revoke individual powers. I like that one. I can keep a list of all the admin users. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And there's less chance of having an unattended root. Root meaning I log in as root and I get a phone call and I'm distracted and I walk off and leave. And I'm really logged in as root, and anybody who just so happened to be walking by could do anything they damn well please on my system. I told you guys the story about back in the day when we did this for a living. Every time we switched over to root, which hopefully wasn't that often, I changed the background color to a blood red. And it was pretty jarring. If you walked by and you went, whoa, okay, my God, that's red. You go, oh, sorry, I'm still on root. Let me exit out. Because you don't ever want to forget that you logged in as root and start doing stuff. Because all the files you created will have what user permission? I mean, what owner? It's going to have root. That's not going to do you any good. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. You know how this works.